Hey everybody, welcome to Top 10 Thursday on the Mana Leak. I'm John as always, and it's been a while since we've done a Top 10 Thursday. It's been ridiculously hot and humid here, as it often is in the summer, and that's been making setting up and getting the lighting done and etc. Just a bit of a hassle. Plus, I haven't been feeling terribly great, but I wanted to get this list out, so unfortunately I'm not on camera today, but I'm here in voice talking to you, and we're going to talk about the top 10 cards of Amonkhet that I was wrong about in my set review. Up first is one that I was relatively close on, and that was Gust Walker. I originally gave it a C+, saying that it was a bear with an upside, but a really powerful one that I could, I quote, maybe even push into the B- territory. But since it's only every other turn, I think I'll keep it at C+. No, Gust Walker is just ridiculously good, and quite probably just flat out the single best white uncommon in the entire set. Gust Walker, real good. Certainly deserved better than the C+ that I gave it. Number 9 is Bloodlust Insider. Bloodlust Insider had everything going against it for cards that I dislike. It was a 1/1 for 1. It gave haste, which I'm not typically a big fan of in most formats. I gave this a C-. I said that this has to be your turn 1 play, and that this thing would just be a card that I would cut very liberally. And I did, to start with. And I was wrong. Bloodlust Insider just worked amazingly in this format. Probably much closer to C+. I wouldn't go that much higher. You know, this required other stuff to be good, but still, not a C-. A card that I've played a lot of, and I gave a D+ to, is coming in at number 8, and that is Sacred Cat. I compared this to Trained Caracal, which is exactly the same thing without Embalm, and Trained Caracal was horrible in Return to Ravnica, and I thought that this was going to be just as bad, even though you could get it back a second time. Turns out, no. The way this format worked, this card was just totally, utterly playable, much more in the C range. C+ in some decks, but definitely more the C range. Certainly not the D+. I'm never going to play this card that I expected. I have played a ridiculous number of Sacred Cats. Censor is going to come in at number 7, and this is a card that I actually haven't played. I don't think I've ever actually had my hands on a Censor. And I gave it a D-. I didn't want to have my hands on Censor because it's just a force spike, and those get so much worse later in the game when your opponent can easily just pay the mana. And yeah, it turns out it was actually totally fine. It was probably slightly less good than Essence Scatter, but even maybe just on par with Essence Scatter. It still wasn't amazing. It was much more like a C, maybe C+, but it certainly wasn't the D- that I started at. I will, however, say that I talked about, during my review of Censor, how everybody was talking about how cycling was going to be the big thing, and how you were going to cycle every card that said cycling, regardless of if you wanted to use it later, you were going to cycle it, because cycling's the best. It wasn't. I saw someone summarize that cycling going into this set was one of the best mechanics ever done, but no, it's just when cycling was done previously, it was done really well in a format that really supported it. Turns out cycling is not inherently just the best, most amazing mechanic. It can be done real bad, and it can be done in a set that just does not support it, as we saw with Amonkhet. Approach of the Second Sun is another card that I was definitely wrong about. I had this at a D+, and I famously totally misread it and thought that you had to cast the spell twice in the same turn. And I said that a 7-turn clock is an extremely long clock, and it is. You don't really want to build an Approach of the Second Sun deck where you play this and then your plan is to play it 7 turns later. You want to be cycling. You want to be milling yourself. You want to be, digging down to that card in some way. And it's a deck that you can definitely somewhat consistently go off with. It's still not super supported in the format. So I don't know exactly what grade I would like to give this. It's not D+, but you got to be careful. But it's certainly not a D+, as I originally had said. Faith of the Devoted is going to come in next at number 5. This was a card that I was super excited about because I was super excited about this format being slow and grindy and cycling and mana sinks and taking your time, and I thought Faith of the Devoted looked like a fantastic build around for the cycling deck and was just going to grind your opponent out, and I gave it a B. I don't think I ever saw it get played. I certainly never played it as much as I wanted to try, and I don't think I saw anybody else play it. If you were the cycling deck, it was because of Drakehaven or Archfiend, and if you didn't have those, there was no cycling deck, and Faith of the Devoted certainly did not star in it. This format simply did not support something as grindy as Faith of the Devoted, so B was very, very, very wrong for Faith of the Devoted. Starting the top 4 is Cartouche of Zeal. I said that this was my least favorite cartouche by far. At this point, I don't know which I would say is the least. This might still be my least favorite just because it is so boring compared to the other 4, but it's got a huge impact on the format as a whole. Getting haste is something that this did pretty well, and being unable to block is something that this also did extremely, extremely well. And honestly, just giving +1/+1 to a stupid little cat, to a stupid little Slitherblade, was really defining in this format. I gave Cartouche of Zeal a D-. It's way more like a C, even C+ in the decks that actually do well with it. You will always play your Cartouche of Zeals, unlike I said, where you would never play them. I started really cautiously on Insult to Injury. I gave it a C+, and it's going to come in at number 3. I was hesitant because of the sorcery speed aspect of it, because of the 6 mana aspect of it, if you wanted to Insult to Injury in the same turn. That just didn't matter. That just didn't matter. This card came out of nowhere. I was expecting to get in for maybe 8 damage, 10 damage off of this thing. I was not expecting the average Insult to Injury turn to be something like 17, 18 damage. This thing was an absolute bomb rare, way more like a B+, A-. C+ was way, way, way too low. As Cartouche of Zeal was my least favorite cartouche, Trial of Solidarity was my least favorite trial. I figured it was alright if you, treated it as a +2/+1 spell, and I didn't see much of a point of going out of your way to recur it. And I just wasn't really impressed. I preferred every other trial than this one. This trial was probably, again, like Cartouche, it was the best trial in this format. It's still probably just my least favorite, though, because it's so boring. Turn your creatures sideways, make them bigger, win the game is the name of this format, and Trial of Solidarity is significantly more like a B++ than the C- that I originally gave it. Coming in at number 1 is a complete cheat, because it's the entire set. The entire format I was wrong about. Like many, many, many other people, I looked at the spoilers, I looked at the mechanics, and I said, wow, Amonkhet finally is going to save us from Kaladesh and Aether Revolt and the aggro train of turn your creatures sideways and win. And, we're going to cycle and we're going to exert, and that's going to be a slow mechanic because you're going to be exerting and taking a turn off. And Embalm and Mana Sinks and all kinds of cool build-arounds. No. This set was crushingly aggressive, just as aggressive as Aether Revolt at times in Kaladesh. And yeah, I did not see it coming. It definitely influenced a number of my ratings. Had I have known just how this format would have worked, had I have known that this was a format where you were happy if you were playing 20 1 and 2 drops, I might have rated cards differently. I definitely would have rated cards differently. But yeah, this set came out of nowhere. And as I talked about a few times, there was actually an article where Sam Stoddard talked about how this set was grindy and slow. And right at the end of testing, they said, we should make it faster. They made some changes, they didn't terribly test them, and we ended up with this ridiculously fast, just snowballing format where blocking is a bad idea. Which I have heard people talk about. That being a stupid idea. Why would you not block? That's how you die. If you're dying, it's because you're not blocking. But blocking is not something you want to do as in the plan. You don't want to plan to block. Obviously, you still block if you need to, but that indicates that you are behind. You're not playing the format as well, or you are just simply behind the 8-ball in that matchup. But yeah, this entire format just took me by surprise, and that happens. That will certainly happen. And I definitely think it's because this format was slow and grindy at some point in development. Cycling points to that. The build-arounds point to that. Having 8 mana enchantments points to that. But, we just got blindsided. We got totally blindsided by Hooded Brawlers and Gust Walkers and Bloodlust Insiders and etc. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for the top 10 or top 9 cards that I was wrong about, plus the entire format. Let me know what cards you were wrong about. Which ones should have been on this list that you thought I was wrong about that I didn't mention? What did you think about the format going in versus going out? What did you think about Amonkhet as a whole? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at The Mana Leak. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. You can also find me at facebook.com/TheManaLeak, patreon.com/TheManaLeak, and twitch.tv/TheManaLeak. You've already found me here, so if you like the content, click that thumbs up button. If you haven't already, click subscribe if you want to see more. And if you do have questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow for the Hour of Devastation White set review.